All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Dreamcatchers YouTube channel. Today we have an interview with Emma. So I'll let her do her self-introduction. So take it away.
Okay, all right. So I'm Emma D. I'm a senior at Crescent Valley High School in Corvallis, Oregon. In school, I do a lot of robotics. I'm on my school's FRC robotics team. I also like to play the flute. I'm really into classical music, but I do a bit of jazz. Out of school, I do a lot of research in robotics, so like agricultural automation. And looking forwards, I'm going to Stanford University next year, so I'm planning to major in computer science, possibly double major in management science and engineering. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congrats, Emma, first and foremost. And so that's really interesting, robotics. So walk me through how you got into robotics and, what you've sort of been doing throughout high school and if you have any plans to continue that when you're at Stanford.
Yeah, so I actually joined FTC, so First Tech Challenge Robotics in middle school. I joined because a bunch of my friends joined. We just wanted to try something together. But um, I actually dropped out a bit at the end of middle school, but I rejoined in high school because I thought it was really fun. It was a really fun opportunity. I was seeing a bunch of people doing really cool things. So I joined my sophomore year. I started actually on the non technical side of things. So I started in the business sub team. Um, and I kind of got to see like a bit of the outreach work that our team does. So we go to a lot of the different schools in our school district and present like robotics and STEM and like design challenges. And I thought that was really fun. Um, so I kind of got into a leadership position, and then later I kind of just moved up, and I was, doing a lot of planning. So now I'm the team's team captain, team manager. So I do all the project management and timeline work. Um, but throughout, I've kind of gotten to meddle with some fabrication and more technical things as well. So I've kind of been doing everything. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, we do competitions and we win, and sometimes we don't win, but yeah, it's fun.
Sweet. So you mentioned you're the team captain. So,
Mhm.
and you kind of talked about your responsibilities, but what does that look like? What do you do? What kind of responsibilities do you hold? And how is that as your role? How do you like it?
Yeah, so I am a very organized person. I like having everything just in line, and I like to know what I'm doing and what's going on. So that kind of translated well into my team manager position because as team manager, as team captain, it's kind of both. But I'm in charge of planning the team events. So in the fall, I have to like plan orientation and open houses and kind of work on recruitment for new members and freshmen. And then throughout, our build season starts in January. So I have to plan like our kickoff. So how are we going to interpret the rules and how are we going to go about planning and designing our robot? So I plan that, and throughout the season, I manage the timeline. So we have a group of student captains. We have like the design captain, fabrication, programming, etc. And I have to work with them to make sure that our robot design and fabrication and everything is streamlined so that we can have a robot done in time for competition.
Oh, okay. And how long does it take you? I mean, some people, I'm kind of familiar with robotics. We have it at Interlake, but I think some people might not know, I guess, about the logistics of robotics or and how much work and time, blood, sweat, and tears really goes into it. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, so it is a very stressful few weeks that we have. So we call it our crunch time. And basically, from January until our first competition, which is end of February, we have like 7 weeks to design, fabricate, program, and just have a working robot. So right now we have probably around 10 hours of meeting each week.
Wow.
And depending on which phase, yeah, it's a lot. But depending on which phase of designing or building the robot we're in, there are a lot of extra practices. So I actually have extra practice for fabrication today, and we had some extra practice yesterday too. So sometimes it can be way more than 10 hours, like maybe every day, like 3 hours. But
Wow, really?
it's pretty, it's pretty intense. It doesn't normally get there, but like if it's like the week before competition, we have to really grind and get our robot just perfect.
Yeah, I'd imagine. And it's all student led, right? It's a lot of, you figuring out how to do things and organizing, like you said, right?
Yeah. We're really lucky. We have some great mentors who are really familiar with the robotics program. But yeah, we are student led. So student captains, they are in charge of designing and just getting everything done. And our mentors are there as a support. They don't tell us what to do. We have to figure it out ourselves.
Awesome. That sounds cool. That actually sounds really interesting. Really intense though with
Yeah.
the workload. But do you have any plans to like continue that, whether it's like, a college division? I'm not too familiar with how it works, or, any other future engagement in robotics. What's your kind of plan and your foresight on that?
Yeah, so FIRST, which is the program that we participate in, does not have a college program, but there is a similar robotics program called VEX, which does have college competition. So I don't think Stanford has a VEX team, but I'm looking at options, exploring options. I still have some time, so I'll figure that out later. But something that I also want to do, like in college, is help volunteer at events and maybe do some mentoring with local, like yeah, local California teams. I know we have some college students who are mentoring our team, and they've been really helpful. So I'd like to kind of give back to the program and all that.
Oh, okay. And what goes into, being a mentor? What do you have to do as a part of that role?
Like I was saying, we have mentors who we just rely on as supports. So we have like technical mentors and non-technical mentors. And it's just like if you have any questions, they have a lot of experience with all the different troubles that they've had with like on their team. So it's nice to just be able to ask questions and have someone who's gone through a build season before. So
Okay.
kind of open-ended, yeah.
Oh, that's nice to have. And I know you also mentioned that you're interested in like research, robotics research.
Mhm.
So tell me a bit more about that. It sounds super interesting too.
Yeah, so my research is at Oregon State University, so I'm lucky I live in a college town, so that's a resource that I have. It's pretty close. I actually started getting into some tech-y research the summer after my freshman year, where I started doing some human-computer interaction research, and I was doing data collection, a lot of data collection and like parsing it. And so we just explored a bunch of different notebooks and we're kind of looking at the patterns. But that's not the main thing that I did. So the summer after sophomore year, I moved to a robotics research lab, so more hands-on. And there we worked on apple picking, automated apple picking. So
Oh,
where we live, yeah, where we live, it's kind of rural. We kind of like an agricultural town, kind of. Um, so like apple picking is something that's really prevalent and relevant to where we live. And apples are year round. And so we were trying to address the labor shortages that are, a bit more common nowadays. And robotics is obviously one way to automate that. So I was in charge of working on the vision systems to approach the apples and refining that. And I've been working on it for like two years now. I've kind of taken a break recently, but it's been pretty cool, and I've learned a lot about like machine learning and just all the different applications that you can have with computer science. So it's been cool.
awesome. And do you kind of want to continue doing something similar, when you're at Stanford, or do you have an idea to maybe, try a different field within computer science or maybe even branch out beyond that?
Yeah, I think I definitely want to continue research, but I do want to explore different fields. Robotics, with the robotics research that I've had to work with a lot of hardware, which has not been as fun because I'm not as fluent in the technology and infrastructure that they use. But I really like the software side, like the algorithms and the logic side. So maybe finding a field that fits that a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, so how did you like get the opportunity? I mean, you said you are nearby and you saw sort of like the problem of the labor shortages with apple picking, but that's still as a high schooler to do some like college level research, it's really impressive. So how'd you get the opportunity? And also for other students who are watching and
Mhm.
want to do research like you and like yours, what kind of advice do you have towards them as to how to get these opportunities?
Yeah, so the main thing I'd say is to just like see what resources you have available to you. So since I live in a college town, I was able to email professors just saying like, here's my resume, here's what I'm interested, and if you have space in your lab, I'd love to work in your lab over the summer or even during the school year. And I actually got quite a few offers from that. Um, and so it never hurts to just shoot your shot and take a try, like take a stab at it. Um, so that was how I got my big like apple picking opportunity. But I know there's also an internship program kind of local to Oregon that a lot of my friends have done. It's called Apprentices in Science and Engineering, Saturday Academy, and they basically you apply, you rank some internships, and if you get accepted, they'll match you to an internship program. So it's worth seeing if like maybe where you live, if there are internship programs like that, because I know a lot of people want to get young students, young high schoolers involved in that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. Yeah, with just approaching it never hurts, like what you said.
Mhm.
Um, and so with your research, are you planning on, continuing because you've worked on it for what, 2 years now, you said. So what's your future plan with this project?
Yeah, so it's kind of wrapping up. I've kind of refined my vision program, and the PhD student who I was working with, he's also graduating this year. So my plan for the rest of the year before I move out and go to who knows where, I'm just going to add a bunch of documentation and set it up so that it's usable for future work and future projects.
Okay, yeah. And that's a lot of work. I mean, for not just 2 years, but between that and robotics, like seems like you're really busy. So what kind of advice do you have and what strategies did you use to like manage your time and balance the workload? Because you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I will say Google Calendar is my holy grail. I live by Google Calendar. Everything that I'm doing is in my Google Calendar, including like when I'm at school and when I have robotics and when I'm doing certain assignments. Like in my Google Calendar, I think today, in the afternoon, I have an hour blocked out for just when I'm going to work on my CS homework. So
Mhm.
I think time blocking and just planning out time and making sure that you have time to get everything done is what has helped me throughout high school. Just having that organization and knowing specifically when you're going to get things done. I think that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, so how do you balance like, like the schoolwork that you have because that's, a huge part too outside
Mhm.
on top of your, research and working in robotics. How's that been?
Yeah. So I actually think my schoolwork and just my priorities is one of the reasons why I've taken a bit of a break from my robotics research recently. But I think it's important to prioritize what you need to get done and like I said, setting aside time. So like sometimes I don't have time to practice flute because I need to do an assignment that's due later like later that week.
Mhm.
So just knowing what you need to focus on when, I think that's my best advice. And also just getting enough sleep, having good habits. You're not going to be super productive if you're running on 2 hours of sleep every day. So yeah, treating your body and yourself nicely.
Mhm. And you also said you have your CS class. So that's at school, I presume, right? So um with doing research in CS and, doing your robotics, there's a lot of, focus, and I think you'd need a lot of a background in technology and, computer science. So
Mhm.
how do you think, that prepared you for, doing your research and doing your robotics? Do you think that that gave you enough preparation, or there's just so much to learn when you're actually doing it versus learning it?
Yeah, so I think in terms of like actually learning how to do computer science stuff, syntax was the hardest thing for me. It was so hard for me to remember what functions and what to just write in VS Code. But I think to have a strong background, like a strong, okay, to do well in computer science or any STEM field, I think it's really important to have a strong math foundation because if you have good logic, it's easy enough to remember the syntax and just figure that out. But the most important part is just approaching it with like a method, having logic and like just working through your problems logically. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Well, yeah, like get your fundamentals down and then the details like the syntax will come later, I think.
And do you think you got that, foundational sort of way of thinking? Because I mean, we hear that a lot. It's computer scientists are good for how they think, not just for how they code. So,
Yeah.
do you think you got that
Um,
from class?
from my CS class?
Yeah, from learning in CS.
Um, Honestly, I don't think my CS class was too useful because I took computer science. Well, I didn't even take computer science principles. I took the exam for that, and that was all like just not related to actual programming. And I'm only taking CSA this year because of how my schedule worked out. So I kind of just had to learn by myself. There's a ton of free resources online that are really helpful. So I kind of just worked through that by myself.
Oh, okay. So it's a self-guided, and that's what really helps.
Yeah.
And how'd you, find those resources? And of course, for, someone as organized as you, it's really easy to, or not really easy, but I think it's easier to methodically go through, a lot of the self-paced learning. But I think
Mhm.
for a lot of people, on the other hand, it's kind of hard to learn like a lot of CS or learn a subject sort of by yourself. So what's been your
Mhm.
experience with that? And do you have any advice for someone who's trying to do the same thing?
Yeah. So I think just sticking. So first step I think is find your website or however you want to learn CS or whatever subject it is. And then the second step is making a game plan. So like if your goal is to get it done, get your course done by the end of the semester, you can pull out a calendar and figure out what do you need to get done by each week to meet that goal rather than just saying, "Oh, I'm going to get it done this semester." And then push it all until the last week. That's going to be pretty impossible, pretty hard, right?
Mhm.
So if you spread your workload and just look ahead and just plan well. Try to plan well. It will help a lot. And then the second thing I'll say, besides setting yourself up with the course, is just trying to do some projects, like just applying what you've learned to some. Maybe you want to find all the prime numbers under 100. Just apply what you've learned and just try it. If you don't try it, you're never going to know if you're right or wrong or like going in the right direction. So I think it's okay if you mess up. It's more important to just try and practice and keep going.
That's great advice. Yeah. So keeping on track, on pace, like week by week, and then
Mhm.
applying it hands on. Yeah, and something I haven't asked you about yet is, on top of all of this, you still have, flute, right? So what's that like? How'd you get into playing the flute and sort of where are you at now?
Yeah, so I started playing the flute in fifth grade with my elementary school band. And then when we moved here to Oregon, I kind of just kept playing throughout middle school, high school. I started taking private lessons from a teacher in Salem, which is roughly 40 minutes away.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's quite a commute, but she's such a great teacher. It's totally worth it.
mm,
Um, And honestly, I think flute has become kind of my like, because like you said, I'm pretty busy. Sometimes I'm a bit overwhelmed with all that I'm doing with robotics in school. Um, so flute's sometimes flute is just like my way to relax and express my creativity. It's like my artistic form, right?
mhm.
And I think it's something that I've come to really enjoy and just I like to do it in my free time. And I like to go to all these different honor bands and festivals, and I think it's really fun.
Yeah, so that's something I presume you're gonna keep doing for, obviously the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm interested in auditioning for the Stanford Wind Symphony, maybe the orchestra, though that might be a while out. But I definitely want to continue music as I go like into college and in my future.
Awesome. And you mentioned, yes, of course, obviously sometimes you'll get overwhelmed with the amount of tasks you have on your plate. So when that happens, what do you do apart from, of course, playing music as a way to relax? How do you, manage that? Because it happens sometimes, especially when you have so much going on.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if this is necessarily the greatest advice, but my way for dealing with stress is to get rid of the stressors, and that means doing all of my assignments and doing everything that I need to do. Because the sooner that I get it done, the sooner it's off of my brain and just I don't have to worry about it. But I know I have some friends. They, I mean, it's just good to have hobbies to allow yourself to relax. So, like I said, flute. Other ways to relax, I don't know, going outside, just reconnecting with your brain and just giving yourself a break.
Yeah, okay. No, that's good advice too, just to sort of relax and but also to do it to actually address the
Yeah,
problem
yeah.
practically. That's a good idea too. Okay, now sort of like the big question, and there's no real sort of right answer to this, but how do you think you got into Stanford? I think that's what everyone is trying to ask. Maybe some people have asked you already. Um, but I guess really, what do you think got you in? I mean, you can't pinpoint it to one thing, of course, but what do you think? What are your takes on it?
I have my letter right here. So maybe I think in my letter they quoted um you revealed that you are indeed the spark. And what this is referencing is I wrote about in a lot of my essays kind of being the spark of inspiration and bridging gaps within my community. So like I said earlier, in robotics I do quite a bit of outreach at elementary schools, and what that kind of was just like providing opportunities for people to get involved in STEM and take that step where they normally wouldn't have. Um, and I think just that theme was really prevalent in my application, like whether it was teaching flute lessons or leading outreach. I think I just really showed my admissions officer that I am passionate about bridging gaps and providing these opportunities, not just getting opportunities for myself, but also bringing them to other people.
Right. Okay. So bridging gaps within your community is something you think that really sets you apart.
Yeah, I think so.
And how was your experience, writing the essays and putting that on paper? Because it's a task in and of itself. It's a huge
It
challenge.
is. Oh my gosh. I went into this with the worst mindset. I was like, I'm a terrible writer. This is going to go terribly. But I actually think I read a bunch of essays online, and I think like I drew a lot of inspiration from the style of writing in the essays that I read, and
Hmm.
I think that was good. And just brain dumping, just dumping all of your ideas onto a piece of paper and writing like a paragraph or two, and kind of just getting a feel. Sorry, getting a feel for what that essay would look like, and seeing whether or not you like it. And if you don't like it, you can try something else. And besides brain dumping and reading examples, getting eyes on your essays, just getting eyes from like people who are already in college who've gone through this process, I think that was very helpful for me. I had a few friends who helped read my essays, and there's things that you don't see when you're reading your own essay, but other people see it and it's super obvious to them.
Oh,
So
right.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, getting different perspectives, like getting eyes on your essays, I think that was really helpful as well.
And sort of even more broadly than the in the realm of essays, what else would you say you kind of did to help you get a leg up in your college applications, do you think?
This is not something I really did, but I think I've mentioned this a few times. I come from a relatively small town,
Mhm.
so I kind of just I wanted to highlight these unique traits about me. So coming from a
Sure.
smaller town is something pretty unique at some of these top schools. Like you see a lot of people come from like Seattle or just the Stanford area, the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I wrote about that in one of my essays. I was just saying like in our small town, here's how it's different from the big town. Well, I didn't like split it out like that, but I was like, in our small town, everyone's really interconnected and everyone knows each other. And what like that, it kind of taught me this perspective of like interconnectedness and the strength of community. So just highlighting where you're different and how that like shapes your perspective and how it helps you bring something unique to the college's community.
And it's right. So how that's like a part of your character and
Yeah,
personality being able to
everything
stand
like that.
out. Yeah. Um, and in terms of like, exam preparation is like a huge part of it as well, like to submit, on like the
Mhm.
academic side. So what was your experience like with that? And what tips do you kind of have, on the more academic side of things for,
Yeah.
applying to college?
So I'll start with coursework. So I'd say I took a pretty rigorous coursework, like course load. I didn't take any APs my freshman year, but sophomore year I took a few, and I also self-studied an exam, and then like junior senior year is kind of the same. I took a few more and self-studied a few. But I think just really pushing yourself to take these challenging classes, first of all, it's good because you're learning challenging stuff, you're learning
Right,
cool
yeah.
stuff. But it also shows the colleges that you're actually interested about like, you're interested in learning new things and you're excited to learn new things. You're not just there to get the good grade and then forget everything. So I think in terms of course load, just push yourself to learn, keep learning. And just know that there's always more. Like if you finish your math, which I know that's pretty common, maybe you can take it like online at a local university or something.
Mhm.
So just there's always stuff to learn. And then yeah, so that's coursework. In terms of AP classes and AP like exams, I had okay AP test scores, I think. I did pretty well, but there's a few where I didn't do as amazing as I wanted to, and I think that's okay. Like you don't need to have perfect scores to get into these colleges as long as you show that you're excited about learning. Um, yeah. And then lastly, I think standardized testing, right? So I took the SAT. I took it once. I got a 1550. I called it a day. Um, but I think my biggest tip for SAT prep and standardized testing prep, at least for the SAT, Khan Academy is a great resource. Um, I just did practice questions, like a few questions every day, and I felt pretty confident after doing that for a few weeks. So, yeah, that was my advice.
Yeah, okay, so keep learning even if, it might be the easier way out to
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
learn. That's kind of a weird way to put it, but no, yeah, I get what you're saying. And sort of another kind of question I see a lot of students, I think a lot of people are really asking this is, if they have no sort of inspiration or they don't know what it is specifically that they're passionate or interested about,
Mhm.
uh, how do you think that they should find a passion or how do you think they should find what they want to pursue in the future? Because it's a really relevant to a lot of people.
Yeah, so I don't know how old the people who are asking this are, but I'd say freshman year is a great time to just go out and try everything. So, like I said, I didn't join robotics until my sophomore year. Freshman year, I was out trying speech and debate, which I did not really like. So, um, you know, it's a time to explore stuff and figure out what you do like and what you don't like. And even if you don't find something that you're like really passionate about, if you even have like a small interest in it, I think it's worth pursuing. There are people who also go into Stanford and these top universities with undecided majors, undeclared
Mhm,
majors.
yeah.
So it's totally okay to not know exactly what you're passionate about. Um, Personally, like I'm majoring in CS, but I think I want to go more into like the managerial side of things. So I'm not even set in stone about what I'm doing in the future. So yeah, it's okay.
Okay, no, that's yeah, good idea. So explore in freshman year, but you're not locked into, doing
Yeah,
one thing for the rest
yeah.
of your college life. And sort of as a final question, like a reflection question, really, like if there's one thing you'd want a student who's, watching this video, watching your interview to take away, if it's just one thing, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know if this is the most important thing, but something I haven't said yet. So I'll just say it. There are so many opportunities just all across all the fields for whatever career path you're going into. There's so many opportunities that people have set up because they want kids, high schoolers, to get into that path. So there's a lot of summer programs for like STEM or like medicine and just like special programs that a lot of people don't know about. And these are super fun programs, super cool programs where you can learn a ton of stuff. Um, so kind of just exploring and just looking at what is available, just like even past your community, and just looking for opportunities and making the most of what you have. Yeah.
All right, sweet. Yeah, gotta remember that one. It's a good tip to keep in mind. So, well, with that, Emma, thank you so much for your time and sharing. I found it personally really interesting to hear, your story, what you're doing, and where you've come now. Although it seemed like a lot of work, um, but yeah. So thank you for sharing, and thanks for the tips.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
All right.